Good morning. My name is Penny, and this is Through Glass Eyes. Today we have Mr. Cade with us, who's going to share his experiences not only before the COVID infection, but even after. Mr. Cade, how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing very good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. And Mr. Cade, we're just going to go right into it. And I'm just going to ask you, before you got sick with COVID, where you noticed there was changes, how were you prior to? What type of person were you?
To be honest, without sounding like I'm tooting my own horn, I was really kind of the picture of perfect health. I didn't get sick. I kept up with my flu shots. Um, it was a rare thing for me to get sick. Um, my body healed itself normally from minor things, bruises and cuts. I was a power lifter, so I was in the gym, 4 to 6 days a week. I trained mixed martial arts as well, so very fit, very athletic. Truly looking back, just no significant medical history other than back surgery from an injury when I was in the military, and even that happened 2018. So prior to that, truly like nothing at all.
I'm so sorry to hear about that, Mr. Cade. It sounds like you were the type of person I would have needed some good push from.
Yeah.
Um, all right, Mr. Cade. And let's think about that time when everything changed for you. Can you tell me about that time?
Yeah, definitely. So I was living in New York when COVID first hit the scene. I, followed the guidelines, masked up, I got my vaccines, but still ended up catching COVID at some point. Um, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead. I made it through the first couple of years in New York without ever getting the virus, without ever getting sick or anything like that. And then I moved to Virginia for a job at some point, and I think it was in Virginia in 2021 when I first got COVID the first time. Um, it was awful, like everybody who gets COVID says it was. It felt like I had 10 flus at the same time, but I'm hard headed, and even still, when I was sick, went out and hung out with my friends and stuff like that. I did rest, I think, on the days where it was more severe, but it was kind of like the moment I started feeling like I could get up and do stuff, that's what I was doing. And to be honest with you, I didn't really notice it, like once that infection healed, I didn't really notice anything. For all intents and purposes, I felt normal once I was, back to feeling healthy. Um, and then I ended up getting COVID, I think, somewhere in the realm of about a year later. Give or take probably a couple months on that. But about a year later, I got COVID again, and it was the Omicron variant. Um, that was kind of the same thing. I was bedridden for a week. It felt like the worst flu ever, times a million. And then, same thing. I really just kind of got through it and just got back to regular life, back in the gym, stuff like that, trying to get back to normalcy. I really didn't notice, I didn't notice anything, or I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Things did start to happen, but I would just kind of attribute them to other things. So I started noticing, like, in my workouts, when I would stretch before I had even, gotten to the weights or whatever, um, when I would be laying on my back, stretching and looking up at like the fluorescent lights and stuff like that, they were really harsh. Like, it was hard for me to keep my eyes open. And I felt very dizzy, almost like lightheaded. Um, I would kind of attribute stuff like that to, like, oh, it's my pre workout. I'm just having like a caffeine buzz, something like that. I would do my workouts that I've done a million times. I power lifted, so I'm always under heavy weight, like really heavy weights, stuff like that. Um, and would feel very lightheaded, would get headaches while I worked out, which had never happened before. Same thing, I would get very dizzy and feel like I was significantly out of breath, like way more than I should have been for this level of activity. But still kind of just attribute it to like, oh, you've been out of the gym for a few months because of the move or whatever. So, um, you just have no cardio. I was never a cardio guy anyway. And so a lot of it for me was really easy to go back and say, oh, it's because you just have bad cardio, so I would start working on my cardio. But that made me feel bad as well. Um, so like in the beginning, it was a lot of that. It was almost like, gaslighting isn't really the right term because I didn't know, but that's how it feels looking back. I was just telling myself that all of these different things that started to creep up were unrelated to, I had no clue that I was even, quote unquote, eligible for like long COVID or anything like that. So my brain never even went to this is a post COVID or a post any type of infection situation. So that went on for a few weeks, a few months, and same thing. Like when I would go to MMA class, jujitsu, and Muay Thai, um, I could get through it, but it was tough. And I always felt like my heart was just pounding out of my chest. And even once I would stop, I noticed that like on my drives home and stuff, my heart rate would still be very increased. And it would take a pretty significant amount of time, at least a few hours, for it to get back into a normal range. Same thing. I just was like, you have no cardio. You have no cardio. You need to up your cardio, blah, blah, blah. Um, when things definitively changed for me. There was a weekend, and I need to preface this by saying I am not allergic to anything. I never have been. I've had zero food sensitivities my entire life. I'm not allergic to pets. I have no allergies. Um, Me and my wife went out for dinner one night. I'm sorry, we went out to a rooftop party one night for a friend of ours, and we had some drinks. We ended up leaving the party for a little bit. We went to an oyster bar, had a bunch of oysters, and then went back, had a couple more drinks. And then the next night, me and my wife went out for seafood again. A friend of hers was opening a seafood restaurant, and so we got to go and like our meal was comped and it was fun. We got a couple drinks, but a lot of seafood. Um, the next morning, that was on a Sunday night. The next morning, I had like really bad stomach pains and really bad diarrhea and really bad steatorrhea, which I had never had before. And I'm sorry, I'm being gross, but there was like
Mhm.
a lot of undigested food in my stool and stuff like that. I just felt terrible, like bad. But again had no clue that this was like an infection thing in my mind. Okay, well, you just ate a lot of seafood. Seafood, it's good for parasites, and it could have been anything. And so I kind of chalked it up to that. Um, I'm sorry, let me go back one step. Previous to this, there was actually a significant portion of time um, after I think my first and even maybe my second COVID infection where I was experiencing really bad constipation. But I've had digestive issues for a little while in my life. And so, same thing, I chalked it up to that like, oh, you're just overworking yourself. You need to hydrate better, whatever. So, I started doing things to help with like motility, taking Miralax and probiotics and stuff like that at the encouragement of a couple of not primary care doctors, but maybe like if there's like an in between for primary care and an urgent care, something like that. Just a quick doctor visit. Hey, my stomach hurts. What can I do? Type of thing. So after that weekend with the seafood, stomach went really bad. From that weekend forward, I was never the same. Like that, for whatever reason, was the turning point for me where my body might have been fighting things off and trying to get back into, equilibrium or whatever. For whatever reason, that weekend was the one that set it off. Um, Knowing what I know now, it makes a whole lot of sense, but I just didn't know that at the time. Um, from that point forward, things got bad, what I would say relatively quick. I started experiencing like daily stomach cramping, daily diarrhea, significant brain fog, headaches, a lot of muscle and joint pain. Um, but again, it always goes back to me just finding other excuses for this. I'm in pain because I don't stretch, my stomach is having issues because I ate some bad food. Maybe I got a parasite or something like that. So um, I started trying to like see different doctors and try different things, and ended up finding myself at a gastroenterologist. At that point, it had been a few weeks of me like, just going through this pain and not really understanding why. Um, they ran some tests, didn't really find a whole lot, ran some more tests, didn't find anything. And then finally, I think this is actually going to sound kind of funny. There is a jujitsu practitioner named Gordon Ryan. He's one of the most famous guys who does jujitsu. He ended up having a condition known as SIBO and SIFO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth and small intestinal fungal overgrowth. And he had posted about it. And I saw that and thought, holy shit, a lot of his symptoms are matching up with what I'm saying. This weight loss, this diarrhea, stuff like that. So I took a test for SIBO with the gastroenterologist, which came back positive. And so we think at that point, oh, you just have SIBO. I did a round of antibiotics for the SIBO, Xifaxan. Probably a lot of people who have been through this are going to go through something similar. And it helped a lot, like to the point that I was 110% convinced that all I had was SIBO. When I was on the antibiotics, I felt amazing. Um, and the point for that is it probably was that those antibiotics were helping with the SIBO and stuff like that. Um, but I did the round of antibiotics, felt amazing, and that lasted for about a month before I started to notice things were getting really bad again. The same thing, stomach cramps, a lot of diarrhea and steatorrhea, um, undigested food, really the whole 9 yards. So they ended up doing for me a small bowel endoscopy capsule, which looks like a big ass pill. You swallow it, it takes pictures of your stuff all the way down. And when they got the pictures back, they had noticed some small, I cannot remember some small erosions in my small bowel. And so they brought me back in to do an MRI of my full abdomen, and the MRI came back with patchy inflammation throughout my small intestine with a little bit, I believe, right? Small intestine, large intestine, um, with a little bit of it like right at the top of my abdomen, and then another good section right at my terminal ileum, which for anybody who doesn't know, that is the little muscle that connects your small intestine to your large intestine. Um, and that's really consistent with Crohn's disease. So I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. I was put on budesonide, which is a corticosteroid, but it's specifically tailored to the gut. It's really good at releasing only in the gut, so it's not as systemic. It doesn't affect the body as bad as, like prednisone or something like that would. And I was on budesonide for the first time right there, I think like 3 or 4 months. And then that inflammation subsided. During this, they also had me meet with a nutritionist who we went over my diet a lot, and I kind of started to explain to her, like, I've never had any issues with food, but now all of a sudden, certain things are causing me symptoms, and so we start, okay, so if it's the Crohn's, let's try to tailor this to a Crohn's diet. So from that point, we cut out, gluten, um, almost all red meat, anything that could be considered inflammatory, like at that point, you know. So that'll be more important as I go along because that was the beginning of like my dietary restrictions right there. It was starting with a Crohn's anti-inflammatory diet. Um, I tried a lot of different products along this time. There's a company called Armra that sells like colostrum. Don't ever take that for anybody out there. It's horseshit. Doesn't work. Doesn't do anything. Um, Trying a lot of different supplements, peppermint oil, anything that can really help with motility because we believed at that point that that was such a significant part of this. I tried to. They put me on a Crohn's medication, I think called mesalamine. Um, it's an immunosuppressant, so it lowers your immune system. Um, I took that for a week and was having like terrible pains in my pancreas, which is a common thing for Crohn's medications. They can hit the pancreas pretty hard, and a lot of people have to kind of just get through that, and then the medicine starts to work. But for me, I was like, "Fuck that noise." I stopped taking it. I was tired of being in pain, and it just didn't feel like this medicine is working. It felt like in my body, this is causing me more harm than doing good. So I stopped taking it. I told them about it. We go back. At this point, they're saying, okay, we're actually not 100% sure that this is Crohn's. And I would just like to bring up the point also that generally, when you diagnose Crohn's, it is based off of a symptomology score. Um, I never got one of those. They just told me what I had. And that was kind of a theme with this specific doctor, this specific hospital was very much like I would bring them different symptoms, different things that were happening in my body, and it was a lot of yeah, that's not related. Yeah, that's not related. That's not related. You need to go see somebody else, but that's not related. A whole lot of that. And I'm sure that is the story with every long COVID person, truly. So we stopped the mesalamine. I'm weaning off of, at this point, I'd already weaned off of the budesonide. I remember going in for an appointment, and I think at this point, I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead. So at this point, they said, okay, let's try another round of Xifaxan. Let's see if that SIBO came back, and that's the issue because clinical studies have shown that like multiple rounds of Xifaxan are good for SIBO, even though I learned later that that is very highly debated between gastroenterologists. So I did another round of Xifaxan, and really it was the same thing as the first. I felt great for about 2 weeks, and then things started to get bad again. So I went back in, and I really didn't like this doctor. I found him to be very condescending anyway, but he also did this thing where like he just didn't fucking see his patients. He would send in one of his RNs. I had one of his RNs tell me to my face verbatim, and after paying the $75 copay charge, I'll put that in there. Um, I don't know what's wrong with you. I don't know what to do for you. Come back in a few months and let's see what we can do. Which that was the last time I ever went to that doctor because that's a horseshit answer. I mean, that is just the worst horseshit cop out answer I've ever heard from a medical professional, and I've heard some shit over the past few years. You know what I mean? I'm sitting here in pain, like legit, not like, oh, this is uncomfortable. I am sitting here in legitimate pain all day long. Every time I eat, I am experiencing these like intense cramps and muscle spasms and adrenaline dumps and like all of these things that I'm not understanding. And, for a medical professional, I think to tell somebody in that situation that they don't know what to do for you, just come back in a few weeks, just a crock of shit. So that was the last time I went there. And I decided to start seeing another gastroenterologist, explain to her the situation. She said, okay, we're going to repeat some testing. And we did that. We repeated the MRI, repeated colonoscopy. Um, and she said, I don't think you have Crohn's. I was able to see some inflammation, but it is so mild that somebody with an untrained eye would have never even been able to pick up on this. So I don't think you have Crohn's. Let's see what else it is. Um, we did a lot of testing throughout this entire process. I mean, I'm not exaggerating. There was a point where I was getting blood drawn 2 to 3 times a week for various testing of vitamin levels, of hormone level. I mean, just of everything, like I used to tell people it looked like I was a heroin addict. I mean, it literally looked like I had track marks in my arms. I would have to like tell the phlebotomist, oh no, I just had two in the right. You got to go on the left today. You know what I mean? Stuff like that. Um, my tests always came back good. There was never a single time where my blood work came back and was out of range, other than a couple of values that I knew were out of range because of just my own body and personal experience, from getting blood work in the past. But nothing ever came back. I mean, all of my vitamins look good, all of my amino acids look good, everything. So this new gastroenterologist repeated the testing, and I saw her a few times. It was really kind of the same story. Like, and it actually got to the point, maybe I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but it really was kind of the same of like, okay, we'll do this test and we'll see because you're telling me you have these symptoms. I'm feeling this way, but I'm not seeing anything. That was what I heard a lot from a lot of doctors is I'm not seeing anything here. I'm not seeing anything. I'm not seeing anything. This is when I started to get a lot of take this pamphlet on stress because I think this is a stress thing, right? Like, um, and that I think for me was one of the worst things because it felt like you're a medical professional and you are not able to differentiate between like I'm coming in here and telling you I'm in excruciating pain constantly and you think I'm just stressed out. You know what I mean? It felt like one of the most ridiculous things I'd ever heard. This it's all in your head type of bullshit, and I'm sure that is consistent with other people's stories. I um so I during all of this, I initially started with my primary care doctor, who is fantastic and was the only consistent source in Western medicine that believed me. You know what I mean? Like, and it's why I still see her today. There was never a point where she said, I think this is all in your head. I think this is just stress related. She would always listen to me and tell me, okay, hey, I think this might be related. This doesn't sound like it's related. You know what I mean? She did not bullshit with me at all. Um, and she did not discount like my feelings. That was really important. She started telling me, when we as Western doctors are pretty much at our wits' end, and I will give them the caveat that I know they are burdened by the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies, and their hands are tied to a point. Um, I don't think they're as tight as they make it sound, but that's my own opinion. Um, she said when these kind of things happen, we start looking at functional medicine. And, I had never really heard of that past some talkings. All I really knew was like, it was expensive. And um, that, I mean, that was pretty much it. So she ended up getting me in with a company that was local to me, a functional medicine hospital that was local to me. When I first joined with them, they took insurance, which was fucking awesome because functional medicine doctors do not take insurance. I mean, it is really rare to find that. But about a year in, they stopped taking insurance. So um, I started working with them. It was with a medical company called Nava. Um, I started working with them and initially felt pretty good about it because I had to do some testing, but their testing was a lot more. It was a lot more intensive. It covered a lot more things than the blood work that I had been before. They're checking my vitamin D level. Like these guys are checking for, at that point, shit I'd never even heard of, glutathione levels, and stuff like that. So I felt really good about it. I started working with a provider, and I started working with someone who specialized more so in like autoimmune things because that was still kind of where everybody's mind was medically, was like this is an autoimmune condition. There's something going on with your immune system. Um, but I worked with Nava for about 2 years, I think, maybe a year and change. I worked with them for about 2 years, and in that time, I was passed over to, I think, four different primary care providers and six different quote unquote specialists. Like, this place had such a high rate of turnover of their doctors that at some point I straight up asked the doctor that I was working with, like, what the fuck is the deal here? Like every single time. Oh, I'm sorry. And let me just caveat this with part of my frustration and so much with this turnover rate was I was spending $200 a month on their membership, and it still costed $100 per appointment. Okay. So I was spending a lot of money with this company on top of um, I would have to buy, every time they would bring in somebody, they would review my paperwork, say, oh, yeah, well, I see what this person was at, but maybe, we'll try something a little bit different. Every time that would happen, I would have to start over on some new doctor's protocol for me. You know, that meant ordering a whole new round of supplements, starting from stage one in my quote unquote recovery, and more testing, just everything. And like at some point, the care significantly lessened, and it really just became like they're taking my fucking money. I mean, that's it. And they're not really doing anything back. I got in arguments with some of their workers because they were condescending. Like, I'm trying to ask questions about why I'm receiving such a high rate of turnover. Is there any plan for like reparation or compensation in the fact that they had this special gut program because that was like still the crux of my issue was digestive. They had this gut program that cost like $1,000, and that covered the testing and your appointments for the gut stuff only for I think 3 or 4 months because that was the length of their gut program. Well, the first time I did the gut program, I saw three different people. The second time, where I actually quit in the middle of it, I saw two. So I brought up like I'm paying you guys for this program, but you've restarted it on me 5 times. But my time doesn't restart. My fucking money doesn't restart. You know what I mean? So I actually ended up getting in like arguments with the people who worked there because I just felt like they were dicking me. And surely doing this to other people as well, right? I mean, I'm far from the only person, I'm sure. So I ended up leaving Nava, and I found another functional medicine doctor who um, had like significantly more industry experience. She had 25 plus years of industry experience, as well as going through things like SIBO, and I'm sure we'll get into this later, but like histamine intolerance and exercise intolerance, PEM, and stuff like that. She had been through this already in her life. For me, that was big because you feel like somebody who's felt it understands. I'll probably go back to this later, but that's going to be a big thing for long COVID patients. And we even have kind of spoken about this, but before the interview, it's just something that like people do not understand right now. They just don't. Um, so finding somebody who I felt like did was a big deal for me. Um, I started working with this doctor, I think about 7 months ago. Um, Her testing, and it's kind of the repeat cycle. Okay, I got a new doctor. I have to repeat a lot of testing, but I didn't mind because whereas Nava would order these like bulk tests and then sell them individually to their customers, this doctor sends me a link to the test on the testing website and I buy it directly from them. Right. So it's still fucking expensive, but there's no markup on it. And it's the same thing with the supplements that she recommends for me. She sends me everything through full script. She does not like receive, payment for like recommending these supplements and stuff. They all come from different third party companies. They're not really related. Um, that felt really nice to me. Just felt like, okay, finally somebody's being fucking transparent. You know what I mean? Um, I've been working with her for about 7 months now. Um, the way she runs her practice is awesome because I can just send her a message and be like, hey, I'm really not feeling good. Something's up. Can we meet, pretty soon? Normally within 3 or 4 days, I have an appointment. I'm sorry. Normally within a day, I have an appointment for maybe like 4 or 5 days later, which is that's a big thing. I think for somebody who goes through a lot of medical appointments and stuff is like, I would have to just sit there in pain until my next gastro appointment. There's nothing I can do except see another gastro. And I did do that a lot of times. I went and saw other gastros and like I really tried to get as many eyes and opinions as I could. But it would be the same thing. These are like I went to Johns Hopkins, $75 fucking copay. I walked in, sat down, told the doctor what was happening, asked, what we can do. He told me I think this is stress related. And that was it. You're too young. This is stress related. You're too young. I heard that a lot. You are too young for this. You are too young to be here. I guess I should have mentioned this earlier. I'm 30 now. When I started, um, I had just turned 27. And like if you see me, I'm still a bigger guy because I had a lot of muscle to begin with. Um, I for all intents and purposes, would look okay to the naked eye. You know what I mean? But like I said earlier, I just feel like that's a fucking cop out. You can't see people's internal pain. You can't see inflammation without testing. Like you just don't know. And there's so many times where these testings are inaccurate and blah 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 blah. But that was a lot for me. Like I mean, I really cannot tell you how many doctors I saw that said that you're too young for this. Um, Even doctors that were like cool. I saw, what is it? I cannot remember the name of the doctor off the top of my head, but somebody who specializes in like autoimmune disorder, a rheumatologist. I'm sorry. I saw a rheumatologist a couple of times so that I could get like an autoimmune panel done, make sure I didn't have anything autoimmune. It all came back clear. And I had to see him probably 2 or 3 times for the exact same thing because I just kept getting sent back to this autoimmune, it's autoimmune, it's autoimmune. And that was it. He was really nice, but he even told me like you don't have the symptoms for any of these autoimmune conditions. You might have one or two, but nothing that I would look at and say you definitively have. Um, so since working with my new doctor, I've done a lot of testing. Um, Came to find out she really didn't uh, know it was long COVID either until pretty recently. We were really focused on thinking um, this is autoimmune, but it's not an autoimmune condition. Maybe our initial pathology was very much like something happened. It depleted the good bacteria in your system that SIBO was able to overgrow, and now your immune system is not strong enough to fight this back. So it's letting all of these other microbes and stuff that have been kind of hiding in your body um, grow and come to life, and that's what's causing you symptoms. So I did panels for like Lyme, tick-borne diseases, mosquito-borne diseases, stuff like that. I did panels for mycotoxins so that I was able to see the level of like microplastics and gasoline, like all of these different chemicals and stuff like that in my system. So we got that back, and um, still really kind of thought that this was more of a Lyme thing. Um, but eventually, she said, I'm starting to suspect that there is long COVID with this. I never really thought of that because I don't know anybody with it. So I joined the long COVID subreddit, I think about maybe a couple of months ago, maybe even a few weeks ago. It's been pretty recent. And when I started reading people's stories, that was it. I knew exactly what this was. I had seen a lot of people because I'm in the Crohn's subreddit and like the autoimmune, so like all of these different things that I was misdiagnosed with initially, histamine intolerance, stuff like that. Like, that's what I thought it was. I had never seen so many people like I did in the long COVID subreddit who had the same symptoms, the same timeline. You know what I mean? I mean, like it was matching up perfectly. And so I brought that up to my doctor, and she's like, "Yep, I highly suspect that." And it kind of sucks because when you think like you have bad cardio or when you think your body is not doing so good, the thing that you want to do is supplement that with vitamins, whatever other supplements, and exercise. So for like the first probably for the first 2 years, I was doing everything I could to try and like exercise, take long walks, bike ride. Once I realized, okay, I can't go to the gym anymore, I can't do MMA anymore, but I still want to stay fit. I had to start finding things, to just keep that muscle up, keep the fitness up, not realizing that I was accelerating this because of the, PEM, and the nutritional deficiencies and stuff like that. So that's really kind of where I am now. One big part I actually forgot to mention that I want to go back and just kind of explain better is I'd started with this anti-inflammatory diet right when we thought it was Crohn's disease. Um, at some point, I started to do what I think a lot of people do in this situation and like pay attention to their trigger foods and start cutting those out. So as long as this has been going on, my diet had gotten steadily more strict. Um, and I later learned that that was due to uh, histamine intolerance. I don't think, from everything that I have heard from my doctor, I am not at the point yet where I have like full blown MCAS or mast cell disorder, but I have like extremely bad histamine intolerance. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Like, I've never been allergic to anything. I realized one night my wife had made shrimp tacos. I ate one and my mouth started itching and I couldn't eat anymore because I was afraid of going into like anaphylaxis and stuff like that. Never been allergic to shellfish. I never had this issue. And that happened with a couple more things. And at some point, I really don't remember how, but I kind of learned that term, histamine intolerance. And the more research I did on it, I realized that's what was happening. Unfortunately, I learned that too late, and I threw myself into some really, really bad histamine flares. And we can talk about those and stuff. I'm sure we'll get into stuff like that later. So that's kind of my story, and where I am now is at the exact same place. I feel a little bit better now that me and my doctor have identified for sure that this is long COVID, because now we can tailor treatment to that. Whereas before, we were really tailoring it to like nutritional deficiencies and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Trying to do everything we can just to get my immune system back to a point where it can start to process things out. I've learned personally that for me, it seems like the majority issue is I have toxins floating around, but my body cannot process them out. Like my detox ability is just so lowered that any little trigger now will set me off, you know. And I say that I'm not as sensitive as other people, but I go through, like I said, I have ended up in some bad flares, and when I'm in a flare, it is quite literally like I lay in bed, shaking, cold, just trying to slug down whatever food I can that is bland, and the whole thing. Coming out of a flare right now that unfortunately has lasted about pretty much all of December, but I'm on the tail end of it. Um, and that's kind of where I am, truthfully. No better than day one, significantly worse, but with a lot more answers and understanding. So, you know, to be quite honest, a little bit more hope than I had a few weeks ago, a couple months ago, before getting to the bottom of it.
Thank you so much, Cade, and thank you for sharing your story. It's hard. I know it's hard. Um, we've had very similar stories. Mine started in January of 21, and I couldn't walk for 6 days. It was very hard to go to the restroom at that time. And after I got better, I had this lingering pain in my body. So, where it was just slightly, mostly in my legs, my calves muscles, my calf bones, they were horrible. Like, just stepping was like, holy crap, this hurts, and it was just more uncomfortable at first. And next month, I'm sorry, it'll be 5 years for me. I don't remember. It was July or August this year. I now have an electric wheelchair for long distance.
Yeah.
The short distance, I'm doing okay. The week before Thanksgiving, I had a horrible time. I don't know what happened. I could barely move. I was working. I work from home, which is a blessing.
I
And
do.
then just before Thanksgiving, I think it was the day before I started feeling better as far as that from that crash or whatever. And then slowly, I've been walking long distance. I'm using carts when I go to the grocery store, but I figured as long as I feel up to it, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
And I don't have the horrible side effects usually till I get to the register. And what I mean by that, um, they they say there's my lungs only take 60% oxygen, but they're saying this isn't what's causing the problem. After walking, and this is distance only, not so much for short distance. I can go down a wheelchair ramp, get in a car, and I'm fine. Anything past that, when it gets to the point, I start sweating profusely. It's really gross within minutes. I'm saying 3 or 4 minutes, my hair is soaked.
Yeah.
If I don't sit, I feel like I'm going to pass out, or I don't know what's going to happen. I never got that far, but I have literally in public sat down in the middle of the store. I've had to lay down in a hotel room in a hotel in the hallway because I couldn't make it to the room. That was
Yeah.
pretty embarrassing. I had an episode. I was out in public at a vendor event with my mom, and it happened right there. We were trying to set up, I crochet and stuff. So, well, I used to do it a lot. And right there in public, this happened, and I was so embarrassed. And it's embarrassing because people don't understand and they look at you crazy and they don't understand why this lady's sweating like she is. Why she got to sit down? What's wrong with her? Stay
Right.
away from her. She's sick, that kind of thing. So it becomes a lot. And Mr. Cade, I kind of wrote down some questions as you were talking,
Mhm.
and I got some of them. Do you notice you said the with the seafood, do you notice anything changes with alcohol? Are you still able to drink alcohol? Or is that something you're
Um,
just not able to do anymore?
I probably would not be able to do it, but I don't think I'm really trying to think, I think at that point, I still assumed everything was just, needed a couple weeks to reset, whatever. I think me and my wife probably did have maybe like a party or two that year where we had people over and we're drinking and stuff. But I didn't drink a lot because I started to notice that, like, when I did drink, I would get drunk, but it felt like significantly more intense. Like if you were drunk and just extremely uncomfortable is like the way I can put it. When you're drunk, you're very loose. You almost don't feel anything. Your face kind of gets, a little warm and numb. For me, it felt like I would get drunk or even tipsy. I really wouldn't even say drunk, tipsy. And I would just be in a straight panic attack until I sobered up. And so I think I did that once or twice and was like, all right, I'm done with this. I, yeah, I definitely don't think I could do alcohol right now. I haven't tried it and I haven't drank in years, not even a sip.
I used to enjoy a good margarita once in a while when we'd go out to eat. And this year, my dad turned 80 and we went out for his birthday. And me and my mom always shared a margarita because she doesn't
Yeah.
drink very much. So it was just, something we did. Holy crap, I took one sip. My face turned bright red. That sweating started. I had to leave. I had to leave my dad's dinner because I was so sick from one sip. I was
Yeah.
like, this is crazy.
I actually, while you were saying that, I totally remembered, what was it? Must have been about 2 years ago. So like the first year that this is going on, I'm still thinking it's Crohn's or whatever, not sure what's going on. Me and my wife did a cruise with some friends, and I was nervous about it because I didn't know how my stomach was gonna do. But like, it's a fucking cruise, we paid for it, I'm going on it. Um, I had a couple of drinks like early in the cruise. I think like the first day they gave away like free glasses of champagne. I had one of those. And then like when we went to dinner, I would get like a beer or something, or maybe like an old fashioned with dinner or something like that. But around like the third or fourth day, that's been like the fourth day, um, I was in like pain, like in a lot of pain, having really bad diarrhea, undigested food. Um, but at this point, I wasn't tailoring my diet because I didn't know that that was what I needed to do. So I decided not to drink. I think I still might have had like those zero alcohol Heinekens. I think that's what I would do with dinner. But one of the days we were going out for an excursion, me and my wife, where we get to go swim with sharks, and swim around the shipwreck and stuff in the Bahamas. When we were on the boat, I started to feel like I was going to pass out. And I told my wife, like, I think I'm about to go out, like I really think I'm about to pass out. And I was able to, I started drinking some water that they had on the little, the little boat that we were on that just took us out to the dive area. Um, and then once I got in the water, I think I was able to cool off. It was unbelievably hot. It was in the middle of the summer in the Bahamas. When I got in the water and cooled off a little bit, started swimming, I felt a lot better. Um, but that was, I mean, there's a million and one we could go over, but that was one of the main instances where I really felt like, to your point, I'm about to pass out. Like they are going to have to resuscitate me and bring me back to shore. That's really what I was thinking was, okay, when I go out, are they going to be able to get me back fast enough? That was really what I was thinking. And that was kind of my fear in that moment.
Absolutely. And that's very scary. I will tell you, my worst fear, and I guess I'm telling the world now, my worst fear ever was for somebody to come in my house, like an EMS, and get me out naked. And I was always like, I
Yeah, I
wear
thought
clothes to bed. I make sure that that doesn't happen, right? In June of 2021, I had woke up. I don't remember where I was supposed to be going. I had woke up and got straight in the shower. And while I was in the shower, I washed my hair. That's the first thing I do. I put shampoo, rinse it out, go to
it.
put conditioner in it, and I get this feeling started. This was the first time I've had this. I had this feeling where it was like, I don't know what happened. Everything just was out of whack. I started getting this weird tingling feeling all over my body.
Yeah, that
And
that tingle.
at the time, I had a shower and then a tub. Somehow I managed to get out of the shower and on the edge of the tub, and that's the last thing I remembered. And I woke up on the floor, and it took me a while to get enough voice for somebody to hear me because the way the house was set up, it was my room, and then the other three rooms were on the other side of the house.
Yeah,
And they called the ambulance. Nobody thought to cover me up. And the ambulance came in and, saw me laying on the floor naked.
yeah.
And I had actually had a stroke. I didn't know at first. They got me to the
Oh,
hospital. They did their stroke protocol. I was able to get the medicine. I didn't have any lasting effects from that. But the question was at that time, how the heck did that happen?
yeah,
And what had happened is COVID had taken my heart rate from a normal in the 70s, normal down to 50. And at night, my heart rate was going in the 20s. And because I had got up and went straight to the shower, my heart didn't have time to regulate. And that's what caused the stroke.
yeah.
So that was very scary. Now I have a pacemaker that keeps my heart at the least 60. But it's a lot.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
Prior to getting sick, I didn't lift weights or anything. I was a chemical lab technician for 15 years. I also substitute taught. I was on a PTO. I coached my kids' as soccer for 10 years. I was constantly on the go. I didn't know what it was like to sit down and watch a movie other than to sit down, watch a movie and fall right to sleep because I was tired.
Yeah,
So that was, I think that you can attest to that is the sitting still is the hardest, especially when we're used to getting up and doing things like you said, lifting weights. And the first thing everybody says to me, well, if you walk more, you'll feel better. If you eat more, you'll feel better. And I'm like, I wish it was that easy. I don't wish this on anybody. Never would I wish this on anybody. But I just wish that they could understand. I am having
yeah,
an issue with food, as you were talking about the intolerance. I had been vomiting for over a year. At first, it was just every once in a while, then it became weekly, and then it became daily, and then it became everything that I ate.
yeah,
And that progressed over a year. It wasn't just right away. And just before Thanksgiving this year, I just couldn't keep anything down. I could keep water down sometimes. And then something happened, and I've been to the emergency room twice in the last month for chest pain. And the first time, my pulmonologist that I had at the time, he was like, "You're just having a flare. I'm going to send you some prednisone, and that'll help." I have not eaten so much in over a year. I gained 8 pounds, and that was crazy. And it's not that I eat a whole bunch at a time. I eat a little bit, a lot at that
Oh,
time.
that prednisone, man, it'll have you snacking all day.
Oh, it was horrible. I was like, what is going, but at the same time, I felt a little bit better because now I was able to keep food down, but I don't know what changed in that period of time to go from not being able to keep anything down to being able to keep food down. I'm grateful, but I'm fighting the nutrition part as far as it's only been a couple weeks, and this went on for over a year. So I've switched doctors. to make things easier for me, only because I was driving an hour and a half, 2 hours to a doctor's appointment because that's where the specialists were.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you about that too, but I was going to a long haul COVID clinic from 2021 till this year. 2 months ago, I found out that clinic closed 2 months prior and nobody told me. So there used to be four COVID clinics in the city where I'm at. There's now one with one doctor. And 2 months ago, their next new patient appointment was October 2026.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
When you hear that, or let me back up for just a second. In
Mhm.
your area in New York and even Virginia now, is there such thing as long haul COVID clinics that you know of?
So I'm in Maryland right now, but to the DMV, I look around the entire DMV, Um, there are a few, but there is no, with the exception of, I think, the PACT team, which comes out of Johns Hopkins, and I'll speak to them in a second. Um, and I can't even remember. There's one other hospital that I think has a legitimate COVID care team, a post-COVID care team, where it's a group of doctors working in, pulmonary, um, uh, neurological, like different, like all those different aspects, right? Um, but they make it. I've been trying to find one for the past few weeks since I've, come to discover it's long COVID. Um, they're very difficult to get into. You need a referral from a PCP, and I'm going to say it straight up: fuck United Healthcare. They canceled their contract with Johns Hopkins this year, so I can't go to the Johns Hopkins care team because my insurance doesn't cover it, and I don't have the money. I'm sure that that is the story for a lot of people, and it's frankly bullshit. Um, so I would make the point that even I am in like a high urban area. You know what I mean? I am right in the heart of the DMV. I'm 20 minutes from DC. I'm an hour from Baltimore. Um, it is still extremely difficult to find adequate care if you are not willing to just piecemeal everything. And like that's kind of my issue. There is no central thing. I can go to an allergist and hope that when I tell them I have long COVID and I need to investigate this histamine mast cell issue, that they fucking listen. It's not guaranteed. I might have to go through a few of them to find somebody who really believes, one, that this is real, and two, that I have it and have been suffering from it. So I'm kind of working on that now, trying to find doctors who can check my my cardio, my lungs, my veins, like all of these different things. I'm trying to find piecemeal doctors, hoping that I can kind of build my own care team. And then I've said it before, I'm very fortunate in my primary care. She will sign off on whatever I need her to sign off to. If I need a refill on my budesonide because I've been in a flare and I just need, something to help kind of calm my system, she has no issues. I really just couldn't say enough good things about her. And the same thing for the functional medicine doctor I'm working with. I'm gonna say it. Shout out female doctors. Y'all care more. It's true. Um, she's been amazing. She does all my testing. She gets my appointments ready. I mean, I've just found a couple of people who give that fuck. Um, and I hope that those people exist around everywhere.
Absolutely. And that's the hardest part. How do you pick a doctor? So, the reason I changed my healthcare partially is because of the doctors. I am a cancer patient as well. And I'm sorry, April of 2020, I found out I had colon cancer, and I was recovering from that when I got the COVID. And um, this the cancer care is what directs where I went for care until the doctors just I had so it spread to my liver last year. I had a slice of my liver removed. This year it came back as a golf ball. But the doctors that was going to, they told me about radiation. I did radiation. I was so scared for radiation. I never
Yeah.
asked about the next steps. Okay. And nobody volunteered that. The
Yeah.
unfortunate part around that time, my mom found out she had breast cancer. I went with her to her oncologist, and he was amazing. He told her the whole process. He's like, if this happens, he would go here. This happens, we go here. We do this and everything like that. And I was like, okay, I'm switching because I really like her oncologist. And
Yeah.
my whole point of saying that is we can't just define who we
Right.
go to. There's another doctor that I follow in Plano, Texas. He's doing all kinds of research. Unfortunately, he's not covered by insurance, so I'm picking apart what he's saying. I'm picking apart what other people are saying. I'm building my own little database, not so much for me, but just so I can understand when I talk to people what some of these terms are, because there's still a lot of stuff I've never even heard of. Like I didn't
Yeah.
know there was a functional medicine doctor. So now I've written that down. I'm going to do some research on that. You know, at one point, I had 21 doctors when I first started going to the long haul COVID clinic, and I still see them every 3 months or whatever. They have it spread out to where,
Yeah.
but the thing is that I'm finding, I thought, and this sounds bad, I thought they really knew what was going on. I thought they were researching until the clinic didn't exist anymore, the long haul COVID clinic, because now the the type of care has changed. They're back in whatever clinics they're used to. I've sent my pulmonologist messages once after each time that I've been to the emergency room with this chest pain. And both time or the first time it took him probably about 10 days to respond. This time I'm still waiting and it's been um, the Sunday before Thanksgiving. I'm still waiting for a response. And the
Yeah.
care has definitely changed, and that's the craziest part. Um, I don't, I understand this is new, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to bash the healthcare system. And I know that there's government
Please do.
regulations and
Please
stuff,
do
but
though.
this doesn't make sense. You know? It
No.
really doesn't make sense that this is so hard to get care. And then when you call new doctors or whatever, hey, do your doctors know anything about long haul COVID? What's that? So now your staff don't even know. It
Right.
seems like there should be some kind of education that is passed out to everybody that's in the medical field. Hey, this is what's going on. This is symptoms that they could be potentially coming to you for something. But I feel like you go to a doctor and they run these tests and they make you feel like there's nothing wrong, it's all in your head.
Yeah.
What do you do then? How
Right.
do you react to that? How does that make you feel that you're having to do all the research basically for your care?
Yeah. It's it's tough. I mean, shout out Reddit because to be honest, I feel like I've learned more from other people's experiences than I have going to doctors and stuff. Um, so, oh God, man, I mean, there's so many things I could say about it. The quality of care has dropped significantly with this administration, and it's no surprise that they really don't have a lot of reverence for medical care. Um, but obviously as somebody who's suffering and you brought this up, you said, I understand that this is new. I would just like to make the point for anybody else out here who listens to that um it's been 6 years. It's not that new. We had a vaccine in what, 3 to 6 months, so it's not that new. And I can understand that time is relative with stuff like this, but the truth is, in a working healthcare system, this is not an issue. And you can even corroborate that in the long COVID subreddit. I have seen people making comments like, yeah, I live in New Zealand or Thailand, a country that you would really not associate just off the bat with like great medical care or anything coming from a Western country. They're like, we don't have this. This isn't an issue for us. We did what our government said. We listened because they put out the right information, and we don't have this. Long COVID is just not as prevalent in other countries, and I find that deeply ironic that we we are one of the wealthiest nations and just cannot find a way to take care of our people. I'm sorry, let me rephrase that. Will not find a way to take care of our people.
Absolutely. And I'm so sorry about that.
Oh,
Um, I think that's the hardest thing. And when I do, let me back up for a minute. I didn't know anything about Reddit till a couple months ago. I finally found a counselor, and that's been a lot of it too, is the mental, of what we go through mentally.
yeah,
And I finally found a counselor that really sounds like it don't matter if she does or not. She sounds like she truly cares. She says she has other patients with long haul COVID, and
yeah.
she really, I love her to death. I
That's an
recommend
important phrase.
anybody in Texas.
I have other patients with this. That is an important phrase for me right now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because up in, so it, not only am I doing this YouTube channel, back in September, I started a Zoom meeting and I sat on it by myself for 5 weeks before the first person joined. And this was just putting it out there that I had a Zoom meeting. And we're not going to make this particular one very big, but I do have somebody from North Carolina. I have somebody from Canada, somebody from the Caribbean. Now we have somebody from Pennsylvania that's joined. The meeting I did earlier today, the young lady is in Brazil, so she's already shared her story, and these will be posted sometime today. I have a couple to post. The most important thing for people to realize is that it does exist, but it didn't discriminate. It doesn't matter what walk of life you were in. The young lady that I talked to in Canada, she was a bodybuilder as well.
Yeah,
So to hear, you guys were healthy, you're bodybuilding. I wasn't there. I didn't have a perfect body. I've always been overweight. I've lost a lot of weight previous to chemo and all that, but gained a whole bunch back too. It's very discouraging. And because when we were growing up, and I know there's 20 years between you and I, but it's the same scenario. If you want to feel better, you got to get up and move around, you got to eat better, you know,
yeah,
but in this instance, I feel like our bodies fight us in every single thing we try to do except rest. And even rest is a challenge because I'm not even sleeping anymore. I mean, I sleep, don't get me wrong. I'll sleep like an hour and a half, and then I'm wide awake for a couple hours, and I'll sleep another hour, and I'm awake for a couple hours. And that since I've been able to walk a little bit better, the sleep disappeared. So it's like a double-edged sword. Once something starts working better than it was, then you have something else that comes in and reminds you that you're not really better, if that makes sense. Have you noticed anything like that where you feel better in one area and then something else just comes and says, "Oh, here I am now," or "Let
oh
me get
yeah.
worse."
Yeah, like I said, as I've as this has gotten progressively worse, I feel like I've collected symptoms like trading cards, whereas initially I was having some digestive issues, some uncomfortability. Um, I don't know if I've heard of a symptom yet that I don't currently have or have not experienced in the past. Um, I will say I am personally fortunate and I don't understand the reason why or the mechanism. I don't seem to have a lot of the like brain fog that other people with long COVID do. I do have crashes throughout the day, like energy crashes and stuff. But when I'm awake, and I've kind of talked with this about my functional medicine doctor too. When I'm awake, my brain feels as sharp as a tack. It's really just my body that's, having the issues. The way it's explained to me is that it, this keeps your body in this fight or flight mode, right? This adrenal response. And so what's happening is, of course, you feel sharp. You're like always on edge, ready for something to pop off. Your adrenaline is always going. So you're just firing on all cylinders mentally. But at the same time, that adrenaline and these adrenaline dumps that we experience because of things like, blood pressure drops and blood sugar spikes and stuff like that causes histamine release, which causes flares, which causes muscle wasting. You know what I mean? And it just becomes this this self-fulfilling cycle every time. You mentioned not being able to sleep. Yeah, every single night for the past 3 years, I have woken up at least once in the middle of the night. Heart rate high. I just got to wait for this adrenaline dump to calm down, let my body re-regulate its blood sugar or whatever the deal was, and then I can go back to sleep. My general thing is that happens twice, and then on the third time, usually on the second or third time, I'm just not able to go back to sleep. For me, it's not terrible right now. That schedule ends at about like 6:30. Sometimes I can get to 7 a.m., but that's pretty much the extent of the sleep I can get. So I mitigate that by going to sleep earlier, but then it's like, and we'll get into the personal part of this too, I'm sure, but like I'm 30 fucking years old. Sometimes I want to stay up and watch the UFC fights until midnight. I want to go out and see a late movie with my wife. You know what I mean? Like I want to do those things. And you just can't. You just can't because it is worse for you in the long run.
Absolutely. Now, Cade, you mentioned your beautiful wife. Let me ask you, how has this, or has it even, affected your relationship? Does she seem understanding? And I don't mean this out of any disrespect. I'm just trying to get a
Uh,
feel for, as far as relationship, if that's affected you guys at all.
it has definitely affected us, but I am fortunate in that, like, me and my wife have always had a good relationship. I mean, I tell people we fight max 3 times a year. You know what I mean? And it's not even fights like we don't talk to each other for a day or two at a time or anything like that. We just have to fight it out real quick, past it, and move on. That's the kind of relationship that we have and have always had. We're very close. We do everything together. So, all that to say, it has affected us because before we always did things on the weekends. We're walking in DC, we're going to Annapolis, we're eating this amazing food that's, in the DMV, we're traveling, we're seeing friends, we're doing all of these things. Once we realized that that was no longer an option, and it's been about a year and a half since at that point, it was kind of at the halfway point where it was like, okay, like I'm doing too much, something's wrong. um she's kind of been here with me. Like she's not really one to she's a caretaker. Like by nature, she's a caretaker. So she's not one to be like, all right, I'm going out with my friends, call me if you need anything, anything like that with her is extremely rare. And we discuss it. So it's not like out of the blue, she's just leaving. I know that she has a work event coming up that she's going to stay late for or something like that. Um, so to that aspect, it's been really good. Where it affects us, but I will make the caveat. I know that not every relationship is like that, and it doesn't have to be, and it shouldn't have to be. More accurately, you know what I mean? Um, where it affects us, I think really majorly comes from me. She has her days where it's very obvious that she's tired and frustrated by the fact that I can't really help out along the house. Anytime I'm flaring, what I can't do is going to fall onto her as far as laundry and dishes. When I've been flaring really bad, she has to cook my meals for me. So there is some frustration there, and she's young as well. So I think that the mid just makes a lot of sense. I would also feel that way. I think a lot of the negative stuff comes from my side. Like I said, we will talk more about the personal stuff, I'm sure, but I really could not stress to people the level of fear and anxiety and insecurity that comes along with a condition like this. And I mean, I'm saying that, like I said, I'm a power lifter. I wouldn't say this, but by all aspects, a pretty good looking guy. This disease takes a lot from you mentally, like like a lot. I really could not understate that. And as much as we try not to, it does end up on our family sometimes. Sometimes we take out this anger and this aggression and this insecurity and fear. It comes out in the wrong ways. You might say the wrong thing. You might take something that they've done or said the wrong way, and it causes issues. So it definitely has affected us. But my wife throughout this has been amazing. She's been solid. She does a good job of reassuring me that like she's not going anywhere. She's in this with me through the long haul. So yeah, yeah, I think you get it.
I do, and that's so awesome. It is very awesome. I just give you a little I'm not married. I'm not in a relationship, but I did have one of my best friends moved in a couple of months ago, and he actually does the cooking for me. And when I have those crashes, he steps in and does the rest too. And um,
It's
what I
awesome.
was going to say, if at any point, and mind you, I'd love to do this, but it's totally y'all's choice. I would love to interview your wife as a caregiver. Because I think that I want to hear from us, of course, because we're going through it. But what are our caregivers doing? How is this affecting them and stuff? So that's another part of this channel that I'm going to be adding is the caregivers because it's very important for caregivers to know, or to people to know that it's hard on the caregivers. I can't even imagine you know going to work and coming home and finding, my loved one in bed because they just couldn't do it today and not understanding, but being that caring, loving person that says, okay, I got you. You
Yeah,
know, not everybody is blessed enough to have that. If it wasn't for my best friend, I wouldn't have that. And it's not that I don't have family, it's just we don't live together, so that makes a big difference. And
yeah.
as we talk about family, you talked about your lovely wife and how supportive she is. Do you find the same thing from family and friends, or are you treated different from them or by them? How do they treat you?
Um, my family and friends are understanding, and I think it helps because like everybody that's around me currently, I've been friends with for at least 5 years. Like I'm a pretty reticent guy. I've got a small circle. Um, so we're pretty close. We were almost all in the military together or met through the military. I'm friends with my friends' wives and stuff like that. Um, my friends are supportive in that they know that like something is going on with me, but nobody, and same with family. My family, like my parents and my little brother and stuff, they live in the South, very far away from me. So they don't see this day to day. They really only see what I give them. And I prefer to give people very little. It's just like, my personality. I'm the take it all on your shoulders kind of guy. Um, so they are supportive and they believe the things that I tell them. even if they don't completely understand it. And it's like very obvious from our conversations that they don't understand it. You know what I mean? They want to because like they're not assholes. They're generally apathetic. I mean, empathetic and sympathetic. Um, but they just don't understand. Like what I told my wife, one of the things I'm really tired of hearing, and you can't say this to anybody because then you're the asshole, is when people hear like a symptom or two that I'm going through, and then they say, I know exactly what you mean because I had. And then they go into some anecdotal thing, and it's like, no offense, man. You just told me a story where you ate something bad and had a stomach ache. I've eaten salted chicken and rice for lunch and dinner for over 400 days straight. And that's not an exaggeration. Like, that's the part that I really like you actually said exactly verbatim what I've said before. I would never wish this on anybody, not for a minute. But I do wish that they could feel it so that they could understand. I just wish that people could understand this isn't a stomach ache. This isn't I'm tired. This isn't any one singular thing that you could point to. If I'm sitting there and I'm smiling and laughing along with a movie, there's a really good chance that like I have this random burning pain in my shoulder from small fiber neuropathy, and I just have to wait for that to go away. Or if I get done eating a meal and I'm just sitting hanging out on the couch, my stomach is full and bloated and like I'm in pain, cramping. Like it's just so unseen, and especially for someone like myself who like was a pretty manly dude, for whatever that means. Um, they don't understand just looking at me how bad things really are consistently, you know. So that's kind of difficult because it really just makes me not want to talk to anybody about it, like
Absolutely.
I don't really have the patience for you to tell me right now that you know what I'm going through. Like that's it sounds really mean, but that's the best way I can put it. I have really run out of patience for um I guess as bad as it sounds, people trying to understand. You know what I mean? I almost don't care at this point. I just need you to trust me. That's kind of the
Absolutely.
point that I'm at.
Believe what I tell you, regardless of how I look. That's
Yeah.
that's always been the main thing. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
No problem at all.
Kate, now this is going to sound kind of crazy, but it's reality for what we go through, right? You said sometimes you will sit there and you'll laugh at a show. Now, what is the cost of that laughing for you? Do you understand what I'm asking? So, I'm going to be honest. If I have a moment or many moments where I'm laughing with my kids, and it's a good laugh, you're having this really good time. Within probably 15 minutes, I have a crash.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, if I get super happy, super excited, or let's turn it the other way. If I get sad or somebody hurts my feelings, everything is hypersensitive.
Yeah.
But then I always have this hyper crash no matter what after. And how does is that something that you have found that's happening to you as well?
Um, Generally with positive things, no. And even with things that quote unquote are negative, but like controlled. Like what I mean by that is I watch horror movies. It's my favorite genre, and I watch them like all the time. I love to sit in the dark and watch horror movies. That will get my heart rate up a little bit as things get tense, but it doesn't ever push me over the edge. That I don't really find a lot of symptomology from that. Now, when it comes to true negative things, like if me and my wife get in an argument or somebody cuts me off driving or something, anything that could trigger a negative response in somebody is extremely hypersensitive for me. Like I have to be really careful about watching the things that I say because I've started to realize just how quick that trigger finger has become. And if it escalates, that is when I will see a crash, an issue. I get these like stress rashes on my face, these little red patches on my circles on my cheeks. So that stuff can definitely like send me into a flare or exacerbate symptoms or whatever. Um, so I don't, like I said, I don't, with positive things, I'm usually okay. Um, yeah, I can't say I've noticed too much from like laughing along with stuff or anything like that. And like, um, I
That's good.
watch funny stuff a lot. So
Which is good. I don't know why it affects me like that. And as you're talking about TV, I used to love action movies. I would watch scary movies with my kiddos. And it's gotten to the point, even TV shows, I have to be careful what I watch because I notice that I'm getting angry for no reason. It's the weirdest
yeah,
stuff. Like, I have no control over that. I can't watch scary movies because then I'm horrified for days. It's the weirdest thing. It could be the same stuff that I've already watched a million times, but for whatever reason, that's how it's making me feel. It's really crazy.
yeah. And when I'm flaring, I do actually stay away from that stuff for that reason. Like I've learned it is very just tailored to my current situation. So like for the past, 3 weeks while I was bedridden, I worked from my bed. I only came downstairs to make my meals and stuff. I didn't watch any horror movies. I didn't watch anything. I was like off of social media. Um, and I think I just straight up watched Impractical Jokers, for 3 weeks straight. Like me and my wife have what we call soft shows. So I'll just put on a soft show for a few weeks and that's it. I have to let this calm down. But once I get back to a stable point, I can start watching horror movies and stuff like that again. So I do really try to pay attention to that and like tailor it. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And a while back, we were talking about brain fog and how you really don't have that. I have moments, but I don't know what you've tried, but when I noticed I was starting to have issues with memory, sometimes and stuff where I have to write down stuff more. When I started having those issues, I started playing games on my phone that challenged my brain. I
Yeah.
didn't want my brain to ever become inactive. And I know that sounds crazy. I work a very challenging job. I'm an auditor, I'm a trainer, I pay claims. I do a lot that involves my brain, but I make sure that I'm still doing it even after work because I feel like if I don't have that challenge or whatever, that's usually when the brain fog happens. When I'm at a sedentary, if I decide, okay, today I'm going to just take it off, I'm not going to look at my phone, Hallmark movies will be on the TV, but then I feel like my brain starts doing something weird and it I don't know even how to explain it, but it's almost like if it starts relaxing, that's when I get the brain fog or the memory issues the most. Now, that
Yeah.
doesn't mean if I'm crashing, oh, if I'm having a crash, it's a whole different ball game. But on a normal, not crash status, I try to keep it moving because and just doing research even keeps it moving just because I feel like if I stop losing it, I'm going to lose it, and I don't want that to happen. And I don't know if that really helps. That's just my way of thinking. If I keep it moving, keep it, you know, looking for stuff, then I won't have that issue. And I don't really have a lot of issues like that. Have you noticed you said you work from home and you work from your bed. I've done that too. Is your job more of a challenging position where it keeps your brain moving and that do you feel like that helps, or have you not really paid attention to that?
To be honest with you, I don't know if it's helped. Like, I, my job can be challenging. I'm a computer analyst for a financial institution. Um, so it can be challenging, and then sometimes it's just pretty routine. But when I'm not working, my work is very like ebb and flow. So it might be super busy and then nothing for a little bit, you know? So in those moments, it was between me and you. I might like play video games or I write a little bit, so I might write or something like that, you know. So I do feel like I'm trying to I do things to keep my brain stimulated. I have really bad ADHD and I've had it my entire life. If you could see me in my chair right now, I'm, you know, doing my hands and my legs and bouncing around. So I do think that the long COVID has like exacerbated existing mental health issues. You know, I do feel like my
Absolutely.
ADHD is worse, but I don't feel like I'm getting too much not enough brain stimulation. And actually, recently have kind of come to learn. I was really doing what you did, like whatever I can do to keep things running is what I need to do. But I've learned that even just like doing things like that behind a screen, even just watching TV, it's a lot more stress than we realize. So lately, I've been trying to cut back on my screen time. I'm trying to spend more time not just like scrolling, you know, social medias, especially because we sit at home all damn day. Social media, these little 10-second reels, and I mean, they're so accessible and it's so easy to get stuck in this loop. So I've really been working to try and just break myself out of that. Even if I'm going to be behind a screen, I want to be watching a movie that's on my list of movies to watch, or I want to be, I write movies and stuff too. I want to be working on something like that, you know, or I want to be reading a book. Like I guess I'm just trying to learn how to best lower my mental stress um, because I've
Absolutely.
realized how significant just sitting behind your phone screen all day can be, you know. And I work with computers, and so it's like, you know, at some point you got to put everything. I just told myself you got to put everything down, lay down, take some deep breaths, and like remind yourself to calm down because we don't even realize how worked up we are at any given moment. You know what I mean? It's
Oh,
really been
absolutely.
my wife and other people who have told me like, "Hey, man, you are you okay?" Because that was really a big thing over nothing, you know. Um, so I think just for me, like trying to find whatever my balance is between working on the mental stuff and making sure that you're still sharp, and then making sure that your brain is getting enough rest to reset its own systems. You know.
Absolutely. And I found when I changed things for a purpose, and I went from watching or scrolling through like Facebook, that was my big thing. When I changed it to having a purpose, then I feel like I can do it different, but I still take that time every day. Even if like when we're done, I probably will take a nap before I get everything uploaded and everything, just because I know I need that rest before I go back to challenging my brain.
Right.
And it's really crazy how we basically have to relearn to live. You know, it
Yeah.
was such a dramatic, life changing thing that's I think probably why people don't want to learn, I guess, is because it's just an unreal circumstance. When I tell people my stories, they're like, I've never heard of anybody else having long haul COVID. I've never heard of it. I made a post on my Facebook. One lady went on there and said, I know it's real. It lasts 3 months and it's like the flu. And my family attacked her. And I was like, hold on. That's exactly why I posted this, because my main thing is, if you don't have the education and you don't know what's going on and you're closing that blind eye, that's different than somebody coming and trying to educate you and showing you, hey, this is real. I'm giving you examples. And then you still choose to close your blind eye. That's different. So the
Right.
first thing in my mind we need to do is educate people. And that's why I started this, because I don't know anybody else. I run a nonprofit ministry since 2013. We help thousands of people in our community and surrounding communities. And every person that anybody that I know, that I have over 4,000 followers on Facebook because of it or whatever, not one has stepped up and said, hey, I have this too.
Yeah.
So out of all of the 4,000 people I know, and the statistics say 1 in 5 people have long haul COVID, that doesn't even sound practical to me. It
Right.
seems like out of the 4,000, there'd be somebody else. And maybe they don't look at social media anymore. I don't know. It's just weird that there's all these people that supposedly have it, and there's so many people, so many more people that have no idea that it even exists.
Yeah. And I would bet that a lot of people do have it and they have no clue because they just haven't had whatever that, if it's compared to a bucket, whatever finally overflows the bucket, they just haven't found that yet. And I hope they never do, right? But from what I've read, it seems like that's really the case with a lot of people. They do have it for 3 to 6 months, whatever, and then it just goes away. They rested their body enough post COVID that it could really, cycle this disease out. But it's just such a subjective thing, you know. Oops, sorry about that. It's just such a subjective thing. Like, no, I really feel, even for as similar as a lot of these things are, nobody's story is going to be exactly the same.
Sorry about that. Since I had I was diagnosed with bronchitis a couple of weeks ago, and it's just now starting to break up. It's been a horrible experience. They did test me for COVID, so I'm grateful I didn't have the COVID or the flu. But just getting over something simple like we used to is not that simple anymore, and it just makes it just so aggravating.
Yeah, I'll bump my leg and have a bruise for like 2 or 3 weeks, something that would have been healed, in 2 or 3 days way back when. So I get it.
Oh, absolutely. It's crazy. And Mr. Cade, I know that we're going a lot longer than you anticipated, but before we go, what would be your biggest advice that you would give to anybody else fighting this battle?
God, that's tough. Um, I think I have two big pieces of advice. Um, the first is don't be stupid. And I know that sounds harsh, but in the beginning, I treated this so flippantly, and I did not realize the damage that I was doing to myself along the way, probably significantly elongating, my condition and my recovery time. So if you're doing something and it doesn't feel right, stop. Give it a couple days, try again. If you have the same symptoms, you know now that you have pushed past a certain limit. Take note of that and take it serious. That was a big thing for me. When I started taking it serious, was really when I started to get any relief whatsoever. And the second thing I would say is um, advocate for yourself, because in the beginning, I was really quiet to doctors. And like I said, I'm the kind of guy who will get stabbed and tell people, it's just a cut, it'll heal. Don't do that. Don't do that. You are only doing yourself and the entire medical community a disservice. I don't really care if you have to go to 5, 10, 15 doctors and you tell every single one along the way, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. This is what I have. Like, do that. Do that. Do not let corporations and companies and dollars decide if you get to live and if you get to live comfortably.
Absolutely. And that's the most important thing there is getting somebody to listen. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Mr. Cade, I do want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. In a couple months, I'd like to do this again and just see where you are and see
Yeah.
what's going on. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video in just a second, but I'd still like to talk to you, okay? Just wanted you to know that I'll stop it and then we'll continue to talk, okay? Um, Thank you again for coming on Through Glass Eyes. And if anything, we'll be here to share stories with each other and help each other through it. Because my biggest, scariest thing for me when I found out about Reddit is going on and seeing all the people that are ready just to end their lives because of this. And that's when I realized something needs to be done. We have to have support groups. We have to have something so people don't know, or so people realize they're not alone on this. So I
Yeah.
really appreciate you taking the time this morning and coming and talking. And I'll share this link with you once I get it posted up today too. Okay.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And I would just like to say for anybody out there who is having those thoughts, um, there are resources, use them. That is a part of not being stupid. I did not take the mental health side of this seriously until very recently, and I wish I could have gone back and been more serious about it in the beginning. If you're still alive today, it is because you have hope. It is because you have purpose. Remember that, and you can make it through this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Kate.